This is the Basic Nutrition and Nutrition Education module. My name is Kimberly PREZIOSO. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist and a certified lactation educator. I'm also a matador through and through, having completed my bachelor's, master's, as well as my internship program here at Cal State Northridge. I recently celebrated 25 years as an RDN, and although I have worked in public health for about 15 years, I took a break to raise my family. Previously, I was the Director of Nutrition Education and Training at the Special Supplemental Program for Women, Infants, and Children, commonly known as the WIC program for Northeast Valley Health Corporation. One of my primary responsibilities was to coordinate and develop nutrition education curriculum for our WIC participants, as well as create nutrition and health education training programs for our professional and paraprofessional staff. I also helped develop the dietetic internship rotation through the WIC program prior to it being transformed under the direction of Dr. Annette Besnellian in the Family and Consumer Science Department. My scope of practice has always revolved around the prenatal and pediatric period of the life cycle. I currently am at Northeast Valley Health Corporation again as a high-risk dietitian for the WIC program and am the medical nutrition therapist for our San Fernando High School's based clinic. I'm also privileged to be a part of a new grant called Champions for Change Healthy Communities Initiative as the Public Relations Coordinator. In this grant, we work to make the healthy choice the easy choice for today's families and aim to reduce obesity by helping families make simple yet strategic lifestyle changes like choosing to eat more vegetables and fruits and be more active. We also promote school wellness, edible community gardens, and are addressing food insecurity. You are welcome to contact me if you have any questions regarding this lecture or the field of dietetics. One of my favorite quotes is, "If you do not smoke or drink excessively, your diet can influence your long-term health prospects more than any other action you might take." Well, good nutrition during pregnancy improves the chances of having a healthy baby, and it may even reduce the risk of certain chronic conditions in your child long after he is grown. Now, many women begin pregnancy with shortfalls of nutrients central to a healthy pregnancy, including iron, calcium, and brain-building fats. Well, the good news? Pregnancy and lactation can be times when a woman is more receptive to positively changing lifestyle patterns. And that's a good thing, because never in a woman's life is nutrition so important as when she's pregnant and nursing. Now let's review the course objectives. After successful completion of this course, students will identify how a lactating woman's diet is different from a healthy diet for a woman of that same age, including special considerations for lactating teen moms. We'll identify levels of individual nutrients in lactating women's diets that affects the quantity of those nutrients in the breast milk. You'll learn how to counsel mothers in determining whether particular foods might affect breast milk and evaluate the need for referral to health professionals. So basically, you'll be describing nutrition education, and here I'm just going over the bullet points. Understand the 5 key principles of the dietary guidelines. You'll be able to list 3 macronutrients and 3 micronutrients. You'll understand the main function of carbohydrates, as well as proteins and fats. You'll understand the different forms of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And you'll identify 3 sources of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. By the end of the session, you'll be able to identify and understand the main function of at least 3 sources of vitamin B12, folate, vitamin A, D, E, and K, as well as calcium, iodine, and iron. By the end of the session, you will also be able to list each food group, describe the quantity of each food group equivalency, and understand the dietary reference intakes. So in this module, we will again cover nutrition education and basic nutrients. And like I mentioned earlier, you are always welcome to shoot me an email if you do have any questions. So food. It's one small word with so much meaning behind it. We all know that food is the fuel that keeps the body alive, and not just alive, but can allow it to flourish or deteriorate, to prosper or to weaken. Now, food provides fuel, building blocks for growth and maintenance. It provides substances that act to control body processes. But besides that, eating can be one of the greatest pleasures of living. To eat for good health does not mean you must miss out on the pleasure of eating. And eating for good health can and should mean truly enjoying delicious and healthy food, which improves your chances at thriving, not just surviving. You may also notice as you eat healthier, your body craves more nutritious food that satisfies the body. Pregnancy and lactation are critical periods during which maternal nutrition and lifestyle choices are major influences on the health of mother and child. Inadequate levels of key nutrients due to low maternal body reserves and insufficient food intake during crucial periods of fetal development may lead to reprogramming during pregnancy, predisposing the infant to chronic conditions in later life, and it may also lead to less than optimum fetal growth or even death. Improving the well-being of mothers, infants, and children is key to the health of the next generation. Unfortunately, pregnancy and lactation are times during a woman's life when she is more motivated to make positive lifestyle changes. And as educators, it is critical that you have a basic understanding of sound nutrition principles and are able to effectively convey those guidelines. It is important to realize that many individuals have limited, incomplete, or inaccurate nutrition and health information. Currently, much of that vast amount of health and nutrition information is incorrect or incomplete and is filtered through limited or false beliefs. Simply put, it is not evidence-based. Media's influence on consumer practices is substantial, and oftentimes what people think are health messages are, in fact, product advertisement. And the influence of marketing on young children has been widely established. There is serious money involved in food marketing, and we could spend an hour on those principles alone. But suffice it to say that unbiased, evidence-based nutrition information is critical for the well-being of today's family, but is often difficult for the public to distinguish the good from the bad. And as mentioned earlier, women are often more responsive to improving the nutrition status during pregnancy and lactation. They want to give their children the best possible outcome. Capturing these teachable moments can lead to lifelong positive changes and should be exploited, but exploited in a positive sense. As educators, take advantage of this impressionable period of time. I realize that some of these adjectives are generally viewed as negative, but as educators, oftentimes these pivotal moments, these susceptible moments, are significant. And as educators, consideration as to the background and experience of your client is also critical. And having an understanding of their knowledge, belief, skills, culture, food practices, and health history is critical to providing solid nutrition and health information. As educators, your own background comes into play. However, nutrition recommendations should always be evidence-based and unbiased. Personal experience, while it may contribute significantly to trust and competency, and even add credibility to education, must always support solid dietary theories. The United States Department of Agriculture, the USDA, issues updated dietary guidelines about every 5 years. And these guidelines, the latest of which were released in 2015, are the foundation for our nutrition recommendations today. Intended for policymakers and health professionals, these dietary guidelines are designed to help Americans eat a healthier diet. The 8th edition of the dietary guidelines outlines how people can improve their overall eating patterns, the complete combination of foods and drinks in their diet. This edition offers 5 overarching principles and a number of key recommendations with specific nutritional targets and dietary limits. Let's talk about some of the tools we have at our disposal, starting off with the RDA, or the recommended daily allowance. Now, the RDA is an estimated amount of a nutrient, or calories, per day considered necessary for the maintenance of good health by the Food and Nutrition Board of the National Research Council, National Academy of Sciences. And we'll talk about this a little more later on. Now, the DRIs, or dietary reference intake, is the general term for a set of reference values used to plan and assess nutrient intakes of healthy people. These values, which vary by age and gender, include recommended dietary allowance, the RDAs, the average daily level of intake sufficient to meet nutrient requirements of nearly all, around 97 to 90% of healthy people. Now, a BMI is a person's weight in kilograms divided by his or her height in meters squared. The National Institutes of Health now defines normal weight, overweight, and obesity according to BMI rather than the traditional height and weight charts. Overweight is a BMI of 27.3 or more for women and 27.8 or more for men. And BMI just, again, stands for body mass index. Now, UL, that stands for upper limits. We all know the saying, if some is good, more is better. Well, that's not always the case. The tolerable upper level intake, or UL, is the highest level of daily nutrient intake that is likely to pose no risk of adverse health effects to almost all individuals in the general population. As intake increases above the UL, the risk of adverse effects increases. Now, over the past century, deficiencies of essential nutrients have dramatically decreased. Many infectious diseases have been conquered, and the majority of the U.S. population can now anticipate a long and productive life. However, at the same time, rates of chronic diseases, many of which are related to poor quality diet and physical inactivity, have increased. About half of all American adults have one or more preventable diet-related chronic diseases, including cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and overweight and/or obesity. However, a large body of evidence now shows that healthy eating patterns and regular physical activity can help people achieve and maintain good health and reduce the risk of chronic disease throughout all stages of the lifespan. The 2015 to 2020 Dietary Guidelines for Americans reflects this evidence through its recommendations. Why do we look to the Dietary Guidelines as a foundation? Well, the 1990 National Nutrition Monitoring and Related Research Act states that every 5 years, the U.S. Departments of Health and Human Services and the U.S. Department of Agriculture must jointly publish a report containing nutritional and dietary information and guidelines for the general public. The law requires that the dietary guidelines be based on the preponderance of current scientific and medical knowledge. The 2015 and 2020 edition of the Dietary Guidelines builds from the 2010 edition with revisions based on the scientific report of the 2015 Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee and consideration of federal agency and public comments. Earlier editions of the Dietary Guidelines were required to go through the same exhaustive process. And as I mentioned earlier, the Dietary Guidelines is responsible and designed for professionals to help all individuals ages 2 years and older and their families consume a healthy and nutritionally adequate diet. The information in dietary guidelines is used in developing federal food, nutrition, and health policies and programs. It's also a basis for federal nutrition education materials designed for the public, as well as for nutrition education components of HHS and USDA food programs. Basically, it's designed for use by policymakers and nutrition and health professionals. Businesses, schools, community groups, media, the food industry, and state and local governments also look to these guidelines for direction. So the 2015-2020 Dietary Guidelines provides 5 overarching guidelines that encourage healthy eating patterns, that recognize individuals' need to make shifts in their food and beverage choices to achieve a healthy pattern, and acknowledge that all segments of our society have a role to play in supporting healthy choices. These guidelines also embody the idea that a healthy eating pattern is not a rigid set of rules, but rather an adaptive framework in which individuals can enjoy foods that meet their personal, cultural, and traditional preferences, as well as fit within their budget. Several examples of healthy eating patterns that translate and integrate the recommendations and overall healthy ways to eat are provided and are the basis for today's prenatal and lactation information. Healthy eating is one of the most powerful tools we have to increase positive outcomes during pregnancy, lactation, and beyond. And the path to improving health through nutrition is to follow a healthy eating pattern that's right for each person. Eating patterns are the combination of foods and drinks eaten over time. A healthy eating pattern is adaptable to a person's taste preferences, traditions, culture, and budget. Now, what do you think a healthy eating pattern would include? A healthy eating pattern includes a variety of vegetables, dark green, red and orange, legumes such as beans and peas, starchy and other vegetables, fruits, especially the whole fruit, grains, at least half of which are whole, fat-free or low-fat dairy, including milk, yogurt, cheese, and or fortified soy beverages. A variety of protein foods, including seafood, lean meats and poultry, eggs, legumes, soy products, and nuts and seeds, as well as oils, including those from plants, such as canola, corn, olive, peanut, safflower, soybean, and sunflower. Oils also are naturally present in nuts, seeds, seafood, olives, and avocados. And I can't emphasize enough that the dietary guidelines are an essential tool when providing recommendations to clients. And here is our first tester knowledge slide. And just for the question here, so what do the following abbreviations mean? I'm going to pause for about 10 seconds, let you answer those, and then the answers will fly up on the screen. So the 5 key principles. They include follow a healthy eating pattern across the lifespan, focusing on variety, nutrient density, and amount of foods, limiting calories from added sugars and added saturated fats, and reducing sodium intake, a shift to healthier food and beverage choices, and supporting healthy eating patterns for all. And we'll circle back and discuss these in greater detail after we have covered the basic principles of nutrition. So while pregnancy is not the time to lose weight, women should not use their expanding bellies as a reason to eat more than is necessary. The amount of food a woman needs during pregnancy depends on a number of things, including her body mass index, or BMI, her before pregnancy weight, the rate at which she gains weight, her age, and her appetite. All pregnant women should eat a variety of nutrient-rich foods each day, and it may also be necessary to take a vitamin and mineral supplement. Many women start off pregnancy with an overweight or obese BMI, and many gain more weight than is healthy during their pregnancy. Research shows that the risk of problems during pregnancy and delivery is lowest when weight gain is kept within a healthy range. Obesity during pregnancy is risky for both mom and child, with some risks including gestational diabetes, gestational hypertension or high blood pressure, a cesarean delivery, birth defects, and even fetal death. And that was not an exhaustive list of obesity-related prenatal outcomes. More and more research is looking at the risks of obesity extensively. And if a woman is obese during pregnancy, it also significantly raises the chance her child will be obese later in life. And for further study, as mentioned in your text, you can access perinatology.com for more detailed recommendations of key nutrients during pregnancy. And we will be discussing this in length during our Nutrition During Pregnancy module. The most important takeaway is that high-quality nutrition leads to high-quality health. So let's dive in. There are 2 categories of nutrients, macronutrients and micronutrients. Macro means our bodies need a relatively large amount. Macronutrients offer calories and therefore provide energy. They include carbohydrates, protein, and fat. Then there are micronutrients. Micro meaning our bodies need a relatively small amount. These have no calories and therefore do not provide energy, although they do perform other vital functions. The micronutrients consist of vitamins, minerals, and water. Carbohydrates. So think of carbohydrates as raw material that powers your body. You need them to make sugar for energy. They are the main source of energy for all body functions and activity, and carbohydrates assist in the regulation of protein and fat metabolism. So the forms of carbohydrates. Carbs come in 2 types, simple and complex. All carbohydrates are made of links or strings of sugar, and the links are either simple, meaning short, or complex, meaning longer, and both simple and complex carbohydrates are turned to glucose, or blood sugar, in the body and are used as energy. And glucose is used in the cells of the body and the brain. And any unused glucose is stored in the liver and muscles as glycogen for use later. Now, fiber is another form of a carbohydrate that does not contribute calories to the diet. We just don't have the enzyme to break down fiber, although it does benefit us in many, many ways. And again, we'll discuss that in detail later. This is just to help you visualize what a carbohydrate molecule looks like. So glucose is just a chain of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen molecules. Lactose, which is a disaccharide, or two sugars linked together, in this case glucose and galactose, is again just made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Glycogen, on the far right, is a complex carbohydrate, and that is just a long string of sugars, strung together. So during pregnancy, the daily recommended intake, or DRI, is around 175 grams a day, and that means roughly 45 to 65% of a woman's diet should come from carbs. And for breastfeeding moms, they should aim for about 210 grams a day. And carbohydrates are 4 calories per gram. So what's the difference between simple and complex carbohydrates beside their molecular length? Well, simple carbs are like quick-burning fuels. They are rapidly broken down into sugar in our digestive system that can lead to a sudden rise in blood sugar level, followed by a rapid drop, which can lead to hunger cravings. And simple carbohydrates or sugars occur naturally in foods such as fruit or fruit juice and milk. And the sugar in fruit is fructose, while the sugar in milk is lactose. And just a little trick is whenever you hear ose, just think sugar. They can also be added from refined sources such as table sugar, which is sucrose, or even natural sources like honey. Because they are rapidly broken down into sugar in our digestive system, leading to a sudden boost in blood sugar level, followed by a rapid crash leading to hunger cravings, they are oftentimes given a bad rep. And while it's true that foods have been processed with added sugars, they generally aren't as healthy a choice. Simple carbs can occur naturally in some foods that are part of a balanced diet. For example, most milk and other dairy products contain lactose or milk sugar. And fruits are also a healthy choice. They've got fiber in them, which helps slow the breakdown of sugar. Plus, most are a good source of nutrients like fiber, vitamin C, and potassium. And nutrition labels offer an easy way to spot added sugar, the source of simple carbs that you want to cut back on. Again, just look for the words that end in OS, OSC. Other names you might see include one that we mentioned earlier, fructose, but there's also dextrose and maltose. And keep in mind that the higher up they appear in the ingredient list, the more added sugar that food has. And we'll cover food labels a little bit later on. So sources of complex carbohydrates include breads, grains, and cereals, beans, lentils, and legumes, pasta, rice, and popcorn, and starchy veggies. In this case, you can think autumn, like sweet potatoes, squash, and pumpkins. Now, grains are divided into 2 subgroups, whole grains and refined grains. Whole grains contain the entire kernel, the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. A refined grain is the term used to refer to grains that are not whole because they're missing one or more of their 3 key parts. For example, white flour and white rice are refined grains because both have had their bran and germ removed, leaving only the endosperm. Refining a grain removes about 1/4 of the protein and 1/2 to 2/3 or more of a variety of quality nutrients. And the Dietary Guidelines for Americans recommends making half of the grains you eat whole. So try and use whole grains instead of a refined grain product at least half of the time. So fiber is found in fresh, canned, frozen, or dried fruits, fresh, canned, frozen, or cooked vegetables, whole grains, whole grain breads, cereals, crackers, and muffins, corn, including corn tortillas and popcorn, cold cereals, including 100% bran cereal, shredded wheat, puffed wheat cereals, cooked grains such as brown rice and barley, beans, legumes, and nuts, and wheat germ. So a note about fiber. Fiber is a complex carbohydrate. However, again, our body just does not have the enzyme necessary to digest it. So this is a good thing because foods containing fiber have three primary functions. First of all, they add a sense of fullness or satiety to foods. They also assist in the control of blood glucose, blood cholesterol, and other nutrients. They also alleviate constipation and maintain regularity. Fiber comes in two varieties, both beneficial to health. Soluble fiber, which dissolves in water, can help lower glucose levels as well as help lower blood cholesterol. Foods with soluble fiber include oatmeal, nuts, beans, lentils, apples, and blueberries. Insoluble fiber, which does not dissolve in water, can help food move through the digestive system. This promotes regularity and helps prevent constipation. Foods with insoluble fibers include wheat, whole wheat bread, whole grain couscous, brown rice, legumes, carrots, cucumbers, and tomatoes. The best sources of fiber, again, are whole grain foods, fresh fruits and veggies, legumes, and nuts. So now we are on our next set of test your knowledge slides. And again, I'll ask the question and then give you a few seconds to answer. So how are simple carbohydrates like quick burning fuels? So basically, they are rapidly broken down into sugar in our digestive system that can lead to a sudden rise in blood sugar level, followed by a rapid drop which may lead to hunger cravings. Why is fiber important? Fiber is a complex carbohydrate. However, our body simply does not have the enzyme necessary to digest it. This is a good thing because foods containing fiber have three primary functions. They add a sense of fullness or satiety to foods. They assist in the control of blood glucose, blood cholesterol, and other nutrients. They alleviate constipation and maintain regularity. And that was the Basic Nutrition and Nutrition Education Module Part 1. We finished talking about carbohydrates, and for Part 2, we will start off with protein.